I'm going live.
Yes, we are.
Welcome,
Hello.
everyone. Welcome, Chef.
Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we
Yes, we
can,
can hear
Chef.
you, sir.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone, again. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Kasturi from Unilever Food Solutions, which is a business built by chefs. So we know what you face every day in the kitchen. Everything we do is focused on making your life a bit easier. Our presenter today is the Culinary Chef Experience Advisor of Unilever Food Solutions, Gauteng, Chef Pinky Maruping. Today, she will highlight Heritage Day on the 24th of September, which recognizes and celebrates the cultural wealth of our nation. Chef Pinky will be joined by Chef Mohadi today. So, just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box. Chef will answer them after the presentation. Now, without any further ado, I will turn my time over to Chef Pinky and Chef Mohadi. Chef Mohadi, will you put your camera on first, please?
Okay. Why is it not coming on? Hi.
Yes. Thank you very much, Chef Mohadi. Welcome everybody for another webinar. So today we're going to talk about celebrating Heritage Day with the traditional South African dishes, but going beyond the braai. So each year in early spring or on the 24th of September, South Africans across the race, language, region, and creed get together and they eat, they drink, and they are merry, and to celebrate what binds us together as a rainbow unity nation, which is unity. And it's a proud day that celebrates that cultural and traditional traditions and communities and the heritage of our country. So Heritage Day not only marked the beginning of summer, but it also serves the start of the braai season. And we all know how much South Africans love to braai. So we are a nation of outdoor grillers, but every country has its day. Brazil celebrates with a 7-day carnival and street food. The Irish wear green on St. Patrick's Day. The French drink boutique gin on Bastille Day. And the Americans flip burgers and hot dogs on Independence Day. But in South Africa, we indulge in the smoky sweet flavor of a braai. If there is one thing that the South Africans have in common with each other, from Cape Town, Pretoria, Joburg, Durban to Mpumalanga, is the love of societies, boereworrels, lamb chops, and shisanyama. So, but then today we're going to go beyond the braai, the meat that we all like to do. So I'll start with what is heritage food. So for me, heritage food is described as a traditional local food which is inherited, prepared, and practiced daily, rooted in a mixture of various cultures, religions, and beliefs. And the heritage food usually is being passed on from generation to generation. And so today we're going to speak about that. And I have our guest, Chef Mukhadi, who is going to put some insight on how we're going to go into the future with the Heritage Day. So welcome, Chef Mukhadi. Just a little introduction. Chef Mukhadi has worked in the food industry for more than 20 years. A former food editor for True Love and Destiny. She's a food activist chef working with the Chefs Manifesto Global, a global movement of chefs championing the United Nations sustainable goals. So she advocates to end hunger and the reintroduction of indigenous foods that are good for the earth and for our health. And she is also a founder and head chef of Locha Home Foods and Uju Spice. And she just recently, well, it's not recently, it's last year, I think.
Yes, it's been a year.
It's been a year, yeah. So, but the book is still flying, I think.
Yes.
She has written a book called Veggie Chefs, which is a plant-based, a recipe book that incorporates indigenous ingredients into our everyday life. So, welcome, Chef Mukhadi.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me, Pinky. It's always so good to chat to you.
Oh, fantastic. I think maybe what we can start with is, as I say, this day is all about honoring a rainbow of cultures and traditions, and millions of South Africans will celebrate their holidays around the grill with family and friends. And there is so much to our food heritage than braaiing a few delicious pieces of our favorite meat. So before you whip out your tongues to pay tribute to our colorful nation, I would like you, Chef Mukhadi, to help us on how to incorporate biodiversity or sustainability in our heritage food items.
Well, for me, Pinky, it's simple. It's for us to go back to our real heritage, our real food that we were eating before the other food came. So our heritage, I think we need to go slightly back for us actually to be able to go forward. And for me, it's about the indigenous foods. It's bringing back those indigenous ingredients, the indigenous foods that we all grew up eating. Some didn't grow up eating because at some point that food was taken out of our food system. So some people don't even know about this food, So I think for us and the future of our planet and the future of our health also as Africans, we need to go back and understand what is it that grew here and why did it grow here? Why the reason why it grew here and it grew so well here, and how is it sustainable going forward for us to eat that? So, for instance, although maize is a big part of our heritage, and we love a good pap. We love, samp and beans. It's not ecologically friendly, so it requires a lot of water to grow. So you know what's happening with climate change. There's a lot of drought in areas, or there's floods. So it's an imbalance that's happened now in nature. So we as humans have got it's basically our responsibility to try and get things back to a balance. So, although we love maize and it's not indigenous to us, I mean, it came here in 1655, which is close to 1652 when Jan van Riebeeck landed here. And the story goes that maize came with him as animal feed. And that's how it ended up here. And because it grows so easily, it grows quickly, it's quicker than sorghum or millets, it became one of those grains that was easily adopted and easily taken in by farmers and everyone. And it tastes good. We all love maize. But unfortunately, in the future, we need to look at that either even being a sustainable crop for us to grow, instead of us just going back to our natural crops, which are drought resistant, which are good for the earth, but are also good for us, in terms of health and nutrition. So our Heritage Day, although it's marred now with just braaiing, there's so much more to it. There's so much more that we as people should be celebrating. We should be celebrating our indigenous ingredients and the fact that they're healthy and good for us, and bringing them back in a way that accommodates everyone's flavor, accommodates even Braai Day, so that they seamlessly go back into our lives, and they're not just on special days or on special months like Heritage Month, but every day, because they're good for us. They're good for us in terms of nutrition. So for me, this Heritage Day is always a bittersweet day, because although I love a good braai like everybody else, it's also sad that we have become enslaved to even just the idea of what Heritage Day should be about. So now we just brides, bride day, and we're taking away a lot of the things or the differences that make us special as South Africans. It should be the day when we're eating. If you don't eat muhodu, or if you don't eat your traditional foods every day, this should be the day when you're gonna go and cook moroho and dito, go and look for that, so that your kids can actually remember and know what this food is about. And we as parents, or we as family people who actually feed the family, we need to know these heritage dishes or heritage meals, so we can cook them for our kids, and they can cook them, furthermore cook them for their kids. Because if we don't teach them, we're breaking that. We break. There's going to be a break in that education around what heritage food, or even just who we are as different cultures. So it's always a bittersweet day for me, because I think we miss on a chance to know each other more deeper. I know we are a global community in that we are South Africans and we braai, but there's so much more to us than that. There's so much more. I mean, our differences is what make us the Rainbow Nation. So I think on Heritage Day, we should rather even more focus more on pushing that heritage and pushing the different heritage, and say, look, this is who we are. This is who I am. I'm Venda. I'm Tsonga, and this is what I eat as a Venda. This is what traditionally I would eat, and this is how I cook it. So we actually open each other up to our differences on Heritage Day.
Oh, thank you very much for that, Chef Mohadi. I mean, you spoke about that we used to eat this indigenous ingredients before. So, what did ancient South Africans eat? What what is it that they ate before colonization?
I think, I'm not a historian,
Mm-hmm.
but if you look, for me, it's always, because I'm curious. I'm curious about food, and I'm constantly learning. What you learn is that there's so many things that we ate before, and some of the stuff came through even before colonization. Birds will, seeds from one country will fly from a bird. When birds migrate, They
Mhm.
migrate and they might go and plant a seed somewhere. In the seed could be stored in their gut, and they go and they leave their their poo in a different place, and a seed grows
And it
there.
starts
So now all of
growing.
a sudden, yes. So there's a lot of things that created migration of seeds and of plants. So for instance, things like moroho,
Mhm.
what in particular, amaranth.
Mhm.
Amaranth is also found in South America, and it's also indigenous to India. And it's
Mhm.
only and when you see the amaranth that grows in India and the amaranth that grows here and the amaranth that grows in South America, very different colors, but the same thing. So you
Mhm.
ask yourself, how is it possible that this indigenous food could also be indigenous there and also be indigenous there? So where is it indigenous to in actual fact? So
So that's
our
due to migration.
yes, due to migration. So it's a very for me it's look at what grows there naturally, and obviously that would give you clues as to what was eaten before. So things like sorghum, dito have always grew here naturally. They grow here naturally. They grow here. Even millets and sorghums. And if you look in the Cape, there's a lot of the indigenous plants that grow in the sand or that are indigenous to the Cape purely because of the climate, and also the sand. And you get plants that only grow there. So it also shows you that different in South Africa. So if you were in the coast, you'd eat different from somebody who was inland,
Mhm.
because of what nature gave you in those different places.
Yes.
So I think as South Africans, like I say, we are so diverse, that our food is also just as diverse. For the same reason, somebody in the Eastern Cape won't understand when we talk moroho watepe, because it doesn't grow that side. It
Doesn't
doesn't
grow
grow.
there.
Yes, but they'll understand if you talk about another kind of moroho that grows in that area. So it's for me, it's about that the differences that we all have, and what you look first at what grows there in that area naturally. That will give you an idea of what was eaten before. So it's for me, it's one of those things. There's no one answer to it to say this is what South Africans ate. What the answer should be, in this area they ate this, in this area they ate this, in this area they
Mhm.
ate this. Obviously different areas, different different bounty from nature comes. So yeah, that's my thing around what South Africans ate before colonization
Yeah.
is what grows there naturally. Yeah.
Okay, so but mostly it would be, instead of maize, it would have been sorghum. So can you
Yes,
tell
yes.
us a little bit about sorghum and how we can incorporate sorghum into
Yeah.
our everyday life, or substituting our staple to sorghum? Is there a way that we can do that?
Yes. Well, sorghum is a very good one actually that you're talking about, because like you
And
say,
or
it was
maybe
there.
start by saying, sorry, chef, saying,
Mm.
explaining what is it, because probably when you say sorghum, for me, I'm thinking sorghum beer,
Yeah,
umqombothi.
no, I know.
So maybe start telling us what is sorghum, and
Yes.
then how we can use it, and why sorghum is it, what are the
Yeah.
nutritional benefits of sorghum, so that
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody can understand.
Yeah. So for me, so sorghum is a grain that is indigenous to us here in South Africa. It's indigenous to us. It's a grass that actually grows wild. A lot of, I mean, we sorghum and millets. Those are the two grains that grow naturally here. So they were here before even we came. I think they came from the Sahel region, and moved down to us. So it's sorghum and millet. So they are grass. They look like actually grass, this overgrown grass, but it's got these little seeds or pods that grow on top, and those are the
Mhm.
pods that we call sorghum grain. That's the grain that we use. You can use it ground up. You can have it whole. You can literally the same way you would use maize. You
Mhm.
can have sorghum. You can literally substitute everything that you do with maize. You can substitute for sorghum as the grain.
And the
Sorghum or
color, is
millet.
it the same or is it different?
The what?
The color of sorghum
Okay, so sorghum
versus
comes in
maize.
different colors. So there's brown sorghum or red
Mm-hmm.
sorghum, and there's also white sorghum. There's also I've seen also some rainbow sorghum that
Oh,
people are
nice.
cultivating with heirloom seeds. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
so sorghum comes in different varieties of colors, but it's the same kind. It's the same grain in terms of nutrient value. So it's packed with fiber. It's packed with proteins. So it's almost similar to nutritional value as you would get in quinoa or as you would get in buckwheat, but sorghum has got a denser nutrients than some of the grains that are there. It's an ancient grain, which
Mm-hmm.
is based or which was cultivated here in the south. So it's very good for you. It's good. It's like I said, it's high in protein, very low glycemic index. So it means you can eat it now in the morning and it will release its energy slower during the day, unlike some grains that are there that you eat and you peak in an hour, you're down again, you're hungry again, you're feeling, you're shaking or you're hungry. So it releases its energy very slowly. So it's got a low glycemic index. It's yeah, it's good for you. It's good for your health. It's good for the planet in that it doesn't require a lot of inputs. And it's drought resistant, so it's also good for the planet because of that. It's rich in phosphorus, so it adds more phosphorus onto the soil, helping the soil to basically regenerate. So it's good in regenerative agriculture. So if you're growing it, you know that what you're doing for the soil is adding value to the soil instead of a lot of plants that take a lot of value from the soil and deplete the soil. So a lot of monoculture that we've experienced as humans, purely because let's for instance, we consumers ask the farmers that, look, this is, we want potato, we want white potatoes or red or straight orange green carrots. So the farmers grow only that, and what ends up happening is that every year in year out they're growing carrots or just plain potatoes. That depletes, its monoculture, it depletes the soil, and it actually in a few years you can't grow anything on that soil. So growing these indigenous, especially sorghum and bambara nuts, they add more phosphorus, they add nitrogen with the beans, adds nitrogen to the soil, helping with to regenerate the soil and make it healthy again. Because if your soil is unhealthy, you can't grow healthy food.
Not
So
true.
our indigenous produce, it helps with that. It helps to really regenerate the earth. So yeah, that's sorghum is one of those that can be incorporated. So instead of having rice or instead of having
Mhm.
pap, you can play around with sorghum. You can grind it like you would pap, maize. So you can have it fine, fine, fine. You can still make your putu pap with it. Absolutely delicious. You can still, everything you can do with pap or maize, you can do with sorghum.
Wow,
Very, very
that's
versatile. Yeah,
amazing. That's
yeah.
amazing. And I didn't know that. So you see, I'm glad that you are here to explain to us that for us, we can substitute and not use, so that we are sustainable. So
Yeah.
not use the maize grain, rather use sorghum, and it is
Mm.
good for you, and it's also good for the earth as well.
Yes,
So
unless
now,
so, and I know, I mean, the maize thing is such a contentious issue, because we've all grown up eating pap,
yeah,
and yeah, it's very contentious, and nobody, people don't want to talk about it because it touches on a nerve, because it's like, but maize is our heritage, I don't remember, I don't know anyone who remembers a time when there was no maize, that our great grandmothers are the ones that grew up on sorghum,
yeah,
even though they were still growing it in the farms, Komahayeng, in the rural areas. It wasn't grown here in the city. So we didn't really have access to it. We didn't have access to sorghum because maize is so easy, and it's so easy to grow, and it grows quicker. But the problem now is with climate change is it's not sustainable to grow maize. We love it and everything, but it's really not sustainable growing it. So we need to find ways to change that, incorporate more of the sustainable crops, so that we also doing something towards healing the earth, and we're not just taking and taking and taking. from the earth, because obviously with climate change, the earth is showing us that actually I'm the one in charge, not you. And I mean, I've just come back from Tanzania, and it was so painful to see what climate change has done in that area.
Yeah.
Is
Mm.
people there's food shortages are real, hunger in terms, because there's drought in that area. So communities like the Maasai
Mhm.
can't are not surviving there. They're living in poverty. They're hungry most of the time because there's nothing to feed their animals. Their animals are dying, and because they're pastoral communities, they depend on their animals for
Mm.
livelihoods. Also, even as a cultural symbol of wealth, the animals play a very integral role. So you having a situation now where there hasn't been rain in months, people are dying. There's drought for real, like real drought. It's very hard to see people really struggling, and still holding on to maize as a form, as a source of food. So it's we need to do something to change our trajectory right now as
Yes.
humans. Yes.
So what you're saying that if we don't change now, we'll end up with like the Maasai Nation, because due to the climate change, we are going that route. So we need to start changing now.
We're all
And
there.
yeah,
We're
we
all there.
are there, but then for us it's a little bit better, but then for them it's worse. So, but I think we can talk about how we need to go
Mm,
back in order
mm,
to go forward. But
yeah.
I think everybody needs to start incorporating these indigenous ingredients so that we have differences. Because right now we eat the same crop every day, 365 and a quarter
Yeah.
days, whether
Yeah.
there's rain, whether there's not. And then,
Yes.
when there's shortage, then we start putting stuff in the maize and mixing it, and then we refine it, and it's not healthier anymore.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think we need to start with the chefs. We need to
Yeah.
start with the people who feed the people at home, the moms,
Yes.
or the cooks, the nannies. I think our kids, if we start with our kids
Yeah.
now to incorporate sorghum into their meal, and I like the fact that you're saying that sorghum has, you can, whatever you do with
With pop.
maize, you can do, yeah,
With
we can do it with that. So
with
I
some.
think we need to start that education. We need to go
Yeah.
out and advocate about sorghum and the goodness that it has and what it can do. And
Yes.
so I think for braai, for it's for sites that goes with braai, you
Yeah.
have your braai or you have your papter. So can you do
Yes.
the papter with the sorghum?
Definitely. Definitely. You can do your pap there. Oh, sorghum is, I love sorghum so much. It's such a, whew, like you can literally do everything with it. You can do your pap there. You can do your arancini type,
Yes,
pap
your
balls with
balls.
cheese
Yes, yes.
inside. You can literally do everything that you do with pap, you can do with sorghum. And you can even take it further, you can ferment it and make those
Mhm.
pap ball with fermented with ting,
Also, you can,
which is
yes, you
very
can do
good.
tea with it. Yes.
Yeah, which is perfect for, it's got perfect probiotics, which are good for your digestive system. And all disease starts in the gut. So
Yeah.
it helps to keep you regular, helps to keep your gut healthy. So there's so much to this crop that has always been a part of who we are. For the same reason, when we had a pasha, when we do our traditional
Yes. We use
rituals,
that.
we
Yeah.
always use mabele.
Mm.
Even though now, like, our beer would be mixed with some maize, because obviously maize is so integral, is an integral part of who we are also, which is part of our heritage.
Yeah.
But mabele is the main one, so it makes us think, this must be what the ancestors or people before us ate, because it's such an
Yeah.
easy one to adapt to. So for me, if you're having your braai, try to incorporate some sorghum. Do a delicious sorghum salad using the whole grain.
Mhm.
um you can do, I mean, a sorghum salad, you would do it, I would do it like you would any grain salad. So you would roast some veggies, pour it in there, have a delicious dressing to go with that. I've got a beautiful recipe for that in my book, Vegelicious. But you could also just do just, and I know that a lot of people who are doing the traditional, even though it's Bride Day, I know there's a lot of people still having their traditional meals. So
Yeah.
ting there, if you've got ting there, open somebody up to something new. If you're bringing something to the office for Heritage Day, bring ting. Open other people who've never had ting to ting, or bring a sorghum salad, or so let's do even putu. You can do putu with sorghum. It's so delicious. So it's really not, it's such an easy substitute really for Bride Day, even just for us as
Yes.
humans. It's not one of those that it's like, oh my God, I can't, there's no ways I can get used to eating sorghum instead of maize, because they are so similar.
Yeah.
Even the cooking time, they're just so similar in terms of the taste, that it's really not even a big switch. It's just a necessary switch, but it's also a climate smart switch.
I always had, difficulty in explaining to people about, sustainable food items,
Mm,
because they'll say, "Where will I get it?" How
mm.
easily accessible is sorghum in South Africa?
Now, it's so amazing because that you're saying that, because for we've been talking the sorghum story for a while now,
Mhm.
and when we started talking sorghum 2014, 2013, people didn't know where to get it. It was like,
Yeah.
but I've got sorghum and it's just the ground up one. What do you mean I must do like a salad? How do I do a salad? And it would be, I mean, I would, back then 2014, we were getting it from Nature's Choice at discount.
Mm.
You get like a small bag of sorghum, and it was one of those. It's like an ingredient you can't find. But if you went to Pick and Pay or Checkers or normal supermarket, you'd get the ground up one that we make ding from. But
Yes.
now it's becoming so accessible that big retailers now are stocking sorghum grain. And for me,
Good.
my tip is, if you buy sorghum, buy the grain, because that gives
Mm.
you more options. If you buy ground up, the only thing you can do with that is ding, or mporot, or yeah, or pap, or putu pap. But you can't do a salad like you can't do the grain salad. So you don't get to enjoy it as, for instance, instead of sampan beans, use sorghum and beans. So like you would
Yes.
sampan beans, you have sorghum and beans to cover. So delicious, so delicious. You need that grain, that whole
You
grain.
get the
So I buy the whole grain, and if I want it to be like ding, I grind it up in a blender, and
okay. You
I've got
ground
it.
it yourself.
Yes,
Yes.
I grind it up myself. That way I've got options. I can really play with the ingredient at home. But it's available now, readily available everywhere, which
Oh, fantastic.
yeah, it's getting better.
Okay.
All our indigenous stuff is getting better in terms of
Better
access.
in
Yeah.
accessibility. Okay, so how can the local chefs use traditional ingredients to create new and exciting dishes, as
Mm.
well as preserve biodiversity and save endangered food culture and cooking methods? Because I think maybe they might be struggling with, I don't know how to cook this, I don't know this. So how can our local chefs incorporate this indigenous sustainable food items into their menus?
Yeah. So for me, my advice to chefs is get creative. Get
Mm-hmm.
creative. You're chefs. You've got the skills to turn water into something incredible. So use your skills, the skills that you learned at chef school, to create amazing food with the ingredients. Learn about the ingredients. So for me, how I got to be so in love with sorghum is, I learned about the ingredient. I learned about what it is, what sorghum actually is, learned how to cook it. And once I knew what it does and how it works, I was able to manipulate it and create all
Mm-hmm.
sorts of things. I mean, even with the tohu, I make burgers, I make falafels, I make hummus from them. I make,
Mm-hmm.
because I've used my skill as a chef to to, because at the end of the day, sorghum is a grain.
Yes.
Bottom line, it's a grain. Bambara nuts, those are beans. So what do you normally do with beans? You can do with bambara nut. Whatever you normally do with the grain, you can do with sorghum. So we need to be, chefs need to be experimental. They need to go out, go all out, play in the kitchen, bring back that that playfulness that we as chefs are known for in the kitchen. And don't be afraid of the ingredients. It's just food, and we know chefs will create anything out of the ingredients given to them. So don't be afraid to play. Just accept that this is our food and this is the food we need to be eating. And we as chefs carry that. We carry that information and we carry that knowledge, that indigenous knowledge system. We need to then share it with our people. People follow chefs. If the chef is making this from sorghum, oh my God, I need to learn how to make that. And especially if it tastes good. So we as the chefs, we carry that knowledge, and we also carry, we are the rock stars in the kitchen. We start the revolution. We start the kitchen revolution. We're the ones who say, let's do it like this. I mean, I didn't know anything about quinoa until I saw chefs cooking quinoa. Then I was forced to, what is this quinoa? How does it work? What does it do? If I cook it, how does it react? Only then was I able to start playing with quinoa. The same with sorghum, the same with all our indigenous ingredients. Let's go out there and play and not be afraid. Just play.
So they must just take this and, try to see what it is and see what, they can do with it. They just need to be creative in order to
Yes.
incorporate this into their menus. And when the
Yes.
guests come, they have it and they ask what it is, they're going to start using it at home. So it's a chain reaction
It
for all
is.
of us to start incorporating these heritage ingredients into our Heritage Day everyday
Yes.
meal.
Exactly. Like
So,
for instance, I make chakalaka, and I love
mhm,
chakalaka. Everybody loves chakalaka. But I
yes,
add, instead of baked beans, I add ditlo, I add
yes,
bambara nuts in there, or cowpeas.
yes.
Still heritage, and more
So
than
you can
anything,
substitute
yes, you can that's the best way. The best way is to substitute. So maize, for maize, you substitute with
with
sorghum.
sorghum,
For
yes,
your beans, you substitute with cowpeas or bambara nuts or mung beans to see what you, because that's a bean. So whatever
yes.
you can use, whatever you can get from a baked bean, you can get from these indigenous beans, and they're even better for you, and they're delicious. So you can really, really, really play.
Okay, so now here are some of the traditional dishes in South Africa. I'm going to start with the braai broodjie. Okay,
Yes.
you cannot have a braai without a braai broodjie. But then
Yes.
I think this one is simple because you've already answered it that we can substitute the flour.
Mm.
Can we make the braai broodjies with? Can we make flour out of the sorghum?
Yes, you can. You can make sorghum flour out of sorghum. The only
Okay.
trick is because it's gluten free. It's not like your
Mhm.
regular flour. It's
Yes.
gluten free, so
So
it
it's
doesn't
even
have the
better. It's
protein.
even better
Yeah,
because it's
but it
gluten free.
doesn't. But it doesn't have the protein. It doesn't have the protein that you need in a bread to rise, to have that softness. So you have to
Okay.
add. You either have to add another flour that can help it,
Yes.
or you add psyllium husks to it.
Okay.
So you treat it like you would any gluten-free baking project. So you would
Okay.
obviously have to add either psyllium husks to give it that rise, to give it the thing, or you could
So you
add
can go 50-50 to start with.
yes, yes, you can go
Because
50-50 to
I
start
mean, we're
with.
not saying that everybody should just go 100% sorghum. We need to start somewhere. And
Yeah.
with our taste palette, we used to the refined flour
Mm,
and or the wheat flour and the maize. So
yes.
by introducing Biki Biki, I think
Yes.
it will get us there, and then we'll
No,
start
I
getting
agree.
used to the taste.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Especially if you're going to bake with it. But if you're going to substitute it instead of samp and beans, you do sorghum and beans,
Mhm.
you won't even miss the samp and beans, because the taste is exactly the same. So even with the pap and stuff, it's just the bake. Obviously, baking is more technical.
Yeah.
With baking is more technical. So there's more that goes into baking with sorghum than you would with just normal
With
flour.
your
It was
ordinary wheat
purely because
flour.
of
Yeah.
the gluten
Yeah.
component. Yes, yes,
Okay, so we've touched on pap and chakalaka. We've already
yes,
know what we can do with that.
yes.
So milk
My
dirt.
beauty. Milk
So
that.
milk dirt. You
Yes.
cannot have Heritage Day without a milk dirt. There is
Yes, I
no
get.
way.
No, of course, of course. Well, milk tat for me, I don't. I've over the years I have issues with milk, so I do plant milk. So
Mhm.
I always substitute my milk tat with whatever
Maybe
sustainable milk.
almond milk.
So oat milk at the moment because almonds are
Okay.
also not sustainably grown. So I
Uh-huh.
try not
And they're
to.
expensive, hey?
Yeah, and they're also not sustainably grown. So I stick with the soya milk,
Soy milk,
or
oat
the
milk.
oat
Yes.
milk that I can make. Yes, so I make my milk tart from that.
Oh,
It's just as
nice.
delicious. It's just as I promise you, it's just as delicious. And yeah, and for your base, you can play with millet. For your
Oh,
base,
yes.
for your milk tat, you can play with
Mhm.
millet. Millet, if you grind it up nicely, you can do awesome biscuits with it.
Oh,
Even
nice.
amaranth. Amaranth
Yes.
also makes a nice flour. If you grind the seeds up, they make a very delicious biscuit. I remember I had a biscuit made by Chef Jane. I don't know if you know Jane, Jane Shuti. He
Mhm.
also does. She also does awesome things with indigenous. She made this biscuit out of the amaranth seeds. I was blown away. I was like, wow, it was just so delicious. But it's easy to substitute again. It's
Yeah.
a direct substitute. You know, it's a direct substitute with the millet. If you're using millet, just grind it up and then use it like you would normal flour for biscuits and
Okay.
stuff. Yeah.
Then we go to Cape Malay Boboti.
Yes.
Boboti. Okay,
Yeah.
so Boboti, I love Boboti.
Yeah.
Okay, I whatever, whether you give me a vegetarian-based Boboti, as long as it's Boboti, because of the flavor, because
Yeah.
of that Malay flavor.
Yeah.
It's
The
you cannot
spices.
get it anyway.
Yeah, the spices. Yeah, the Malay spices.
Yes.
Yes.
So, but
Well,
then I have two recipes on the website for ufs.com of the boboti. So I have the handouts on you can go to handouts and you click out handouts. I have links on the heritage favorites, and then there's two recipes there that I put for boboti. I think the other one was lentil and something, and then I think the other one was oh yeah, it was butternut and lentil, and the other
mm,
one was
mm,
vegetable boboti.
mm, mm. No, I love boboti. I also love, but like, for me, it's when I want to try and incorporate more of the veggie stuff. So I'll add in the boboti. I'll even add the mung beans, the green mung beans, which are also just as delicious in
Yeah.
my boboti as the
Yes.
veggie instead of
Yes.
mince. Yeah. So I
So,
think
like you say, in each of our heritage dishes, find something that you can substitute to make
yes,
a difference. And that's a
yes.
starting point. And I
Even if
like
you
that
go
because
habits.
not everybody's gonna just go and change their taste preference and taste
Yeah.
palette to start
Yeah.
enjoying these
Mm.
heritage food items. I
Mm.
think I want to go to Durban Curry Bani Chow.
Oh, ah,
Yes.
so Durban Curry. Oh, my word. I grew up, like I say, my mom is Zulu from
Mhm.
Umlazi. So I grew up half my life in KZN with my grandmother in
Yes.
KZN. And the one thing that I can tell you about KZN people is that they eat a lot of beans. They eat a
Yes.
lot of bonjisi as
Mhm.
a curry or whatever they eat. So bean curry is like my favorite thing to make. And with a bunny chow, for me, that's that we will always do dombolo, either ucheka and
Mhm.
bonjisi, which is like a bean curry with dombolo bread, or you can have it even in. I used to would my grandmother would make ujeka and uponchisi, and then there'd be leftovers the next day. Then you put it in your bread in your sandwich. You'd have like a sandwich and
Yes.
toast that. So you have like a toasted bean sandwich, delicious. So that is easy. The KZN people will give you some serious veggie, traditional veggie stuff, that
Yeah.
you will blow you out of your mind. So
And
definitely,
then waterblommetjie bready. What do you
yes.
think about that?
I love butter blommetjies. I love butter
Mhm.
blommetjies. I love butter blommetjies. So yes, definitely butter blommetjie Brady, because the butter
Big
blommetjies
cheese
only
there.
grow in the Western Cape. Yes, they
Yes.
only grow. Yes, they're indigenous there. I absolutely love butter blommetjie Brady. I absolutely. Yes, definitely. And it's very delicious. It's
It's
veggie
very
delicious.
delicious, definitely.
Yes, definitely.
Oh, Chef Mukhadi, thank you very much. I think, you know what, I have learned a lot, and I hope everybody has learned a lot on how to live sustainably, in our heritage,
Mm,
you know, food items that we can
yeah.
eat every day and incorporate or do substitution. So thank you very much. It's been an honor. And like I said, please go onto the handout and click on the handouts where you will get all the links. The links, there is fish there, there is
Mm.
shisanyama, there is boerewors and chakalaka rolls, there's milk
Mm,
tart, there's malva pudding. So all the heritage
mm,
dishes that we have on our website, I have given you
mm.
link for links for easy access. So I hope you will, look when you open the links, you'll start thinking about what Chef Mokhari was saying about
Mm.
incorporating the indigenous ingredients. Chef Mokhari, do you have anything else to leave us with?
Yes, for me, this Heritage Day, can we really stretch our minds,
Mhm.
and really see what, and see and appreciate the heritage that we have, and appreciate each other's cultures, and not just fall back on just the braai, but
Mhm.
push our minds a bit. Go and
Yeah.
eat something that you've never had. Go and have masonja for
Mhm.
instance, for the first time. Think about other people's heritage who are South Africans, or people that you even know. So you connect with we connect with each other, and we appreciate and celebrate all our diversity. And it's not just the bride that unites us, but also celebrate the things that separate us. So yeah, for me, I'm going to learn more about eating. I was in Tanzania recently, so I'm just so fascinated by East African food. So I'm
Mhm.
going to there's a Ugandan restaurant not far from here, an Ethiopian one. So I want to try and sample some, so my family can actually experience something different, another culture that's that has become part of who we are as South
Yes.
Africans.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. Until next time, thank you, Chef Mukhari. Ciao,
Thank you so
bye.
much, Pinky. Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye.